Hey guys, on my most recent trip to Seattle, I visited a bunch of different Nirvana-related locations and documented their connection to the band and what the importance of these places are in the story of Nirvana. Clips from this video are available individually on my channel if you want to check those out. With this video, I wanted to compile them all together into one documentary. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe. Everything I do here is completely self-funded and I'm the one putting all the videos together by myself, so your subscription does go a long way to help this channel grow. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, this is the Moore Theater in Seattle, a venue where Nirvana played two important shows. The first on June 9th, 1989, as part of Sub Pop's Lame Fest, and the second on August 24th, 1990. Nirvana's lineup during the June 1989 show consisted of Kurt Cobain on vocals and guitar, Krist Novoselic on bass, Jason Everman on guitar, and Chad Channing on drums, whereas the August 24th, 1990 show featured a lineup of Kurt Cobain, Krist Novoselic, and Dale Crover on drums. As mentioned, the June 1989 show was part of Sub Pop's Lame Fest, which also featured Mudhoney and Tad. As a matter of fact, both Mudhoney and Tad were higher on the bill than Nirvana. Nirvana was the opening act and only played a handful of songs. Even so, this was an important show in terms of the development of Nirvana as a band, in terms of their growth as musicians. The following is a snippet from Jillian G. Gar's Nirvana biography, Entertain Us, The Rise of Nirvana. Quote, Nirvana opened the show, suddenly finding themselves spread out on the biggest stage they'd ever played. Krist stage left, Jason stage right, and Kurt in the center with Chad on a riser behind him. We were so used to playing small clubs and stuff, 3 feet away from each other pretty much, says Chad. And here, everybody seemed like they were miles away. It was the first time I played a show that was on a really big stage, and seeing how much different the sound plays. Because the sound was so much different, it's like you hear some reverberation from the drums, you hear an echo after everything that you play. It struggles with the timing in your head when you're playing. It's almost like there's somebody else playing this right next to you. The venue, the Moore Theater, had around 1,500 seats and usually featured out-of-town acts. 3 local bands playing at the Moore Theater was fairly unheard of at the time, says Mudhoney's Dan Peters, especially for a ragtag bunch like we all were. When that was being talked about doing a show there with us as the headliner, and we were all like, are they crazy? Nonetheless, the show sold out. It was a definite turning point, that show, Bruce Pavitt remembered. When Chad arrived at the theater, he looked up at the marquee thinking it was kinda cool to see Nirvana's name there. His parents snapped a picture of the marquee and hung the photo on their wall. In addition to all this, the Lame Fest show was a notable one, largely due to the fact that throughout the night, the bands and the crowd got into scuffles with the security guards at the venue. The August 1990 show was a little bit tamer. That show was part of Nirvana's tour with Sonic Youth, a 7-show tour together between August 16th to 25th, 1990, the last show being in Vancouver, Canada, the second last show being here in Seattle, USA at the Moore Theater. One of the important things about this tour in particular is that Nirvana were introduced to Sonic Youth's manager John Silva, who soon ended up becoming Nirvana's manager. Furthermore, the tour gave Nirvana an opportunity to build on the interest they were getting from major labels. In particular, DGC's Mark Gate attended the first 2 shows of the tour. He recalls the following, quote, I remember checking them out and liking them, and just thinking, yeah, these guys are cool. There were clearly people that were aware of them and knew the songs. I remember noticing that there was definitely something going on there, and I probably said something to Gary Gersh, who was standing there at one of the shows with me. End quote. As per the August 24th show in Seattle, Sub Pop intern Rob Nyberg recalls the following, quote, you could feel the Nirvana train was definitely starting to chug a little harder, and people were paying more attention to them. End quote. This is the location of what may be the longest concert Nirvana ever had. The off-ramp in Seattle, now known as El Corazon. In total, Nirvana played 31 songs at the off-ramp. Nirvana's performance at the off-ramp is regarded by many of Nirvana's longtime fans as one of their best ever live performances. The show took place on November 25th, 1990. At this point in time, major labels were in hot pursuit of Nirvana. A&R reps from Columbia, RCA, Capitol, among others were all at this performance. This performance is notable for several reasons, one of them being that the band debuted multiple songs that night, such as Oh the Guilt, Something in the Way, Radio Friendly Unit Shifter, and Dumb. Rob Nyberg of Sub Pop recalls the following about the show. That's in my rock and roll top 10 of shows. It was the first show with Dave Grohl back in Seattle after they had just toured Europe, so you could see how he had settled into the band. It was an amazing show, just amazing, song after song after song. It's like they played their entire catalog. According to Nirvana biographer Jillian G. Gar, given the number of A&R reps in the audience, there was an excellent incentive for the band to showcase as much of their material as they could. But it was also clear that they were playing just for the sheer joy of it. enjoying themselves so much that as 2 a.m. approached, the cutoff time for liquor sales in Washington state, a plan was worked out so that the show could continue. Everyone left the club, the alcohol was locked up, the club reopened, and anyone who wanted to stay was readmitted. Nirvana went on to play at least another 11 songs, after having already played nearly 20. Now, there are various audio recordings of the concert available online, though these audio recordings are believed to be bootlegs. Nothing official has been released as of yet. It's not yet publicly known if there even is a quote-unquote official recording of the show. In addition to the A&R reps who were at the show, the venue was also packed with fans and various notable artists from the grunge scene. Dan Peters was one of those in attendance. Dan Peters, of course, had just been replaced 2 months earlier by Dave Grohl as the drummer for the band. But even so, he checked out the performance and was impressed by it. I thought they were great. I thought they made the complete right decision. When I saw Dave, it made complete sense to me why he was the drummer and I wasn't. After Nirvana performed Sliver that night, Krist Novoselic gave Dan Peters a shout out from the stage. Thanks, Danny. Dan Peters helped us write that song. Kim Thayil of Soundgarden was also at the show. And in his words, he thought the show was amazing. He's quoted as saying that Lithium in particular stuck out to him, and that Ben Shepherd, Soundgarden's bass player, came up to Kim and told him that Lithium is going to be a top 40 hit. Lithium was eventually released as a single on July 13, 1992, and it peaked at number 16 on Billboard's US mainstream rock charts. It was 2 days after the Off-Ramp show, the news came out that Nirvana had signed with DGC Records. So this show is a very important one in the story of Nirvana for multiple reasons. One of them being that it is one of Nirvana's longest shows, quite possibly Nirvana's longest show. Before I run through the set list, it should be noted that Nirvana's rendition that night of Dive lasted for less than 30 seconds, and their rendition of Where Did You Sleep Last Night lasted for less than a minute. Nevertheless, both songs are part of the band's 31-song set list from that night. The set list goes as follows: Aneurysm, Oh the Guilt, Mr. Mustache, Stay Away, Breed, Floyd the Barber, About a Girl, Verse Chorus Verse, In Bloom, Swap Meet, Been a Sun, Stain, Blue, Sappy, Lithium, School, D7, Here She Comes Now, Sliver, Dive, Dumb, Polly, Something in the Way, Negative Creep, Love Buzz, Where Did You Sleep Last Night, Spank Through, Molly's Lips, Son of a Gun, Sifting, and Radio Friendly Unit Shifter. This set list is comprised of songs that appeared on Bleach, songs that would appear on Nevermind and in Utero, as well as songs that were never released as part of any of the 3 official studio records. So this set list really is reflective of a lot of different eras of the band. And so for many reasons, this show is an iconic show in Nirvana's history. Hey guys, this is the Paramount Theater in Seattle where Nirvana had one of their most iconic performances. The concert took place on October 31st, 1991, though the video of the performance wasn't officially released until 20 years later on September 24th, 2011 as a DVD and Blu-ray disc. Nevermind was released on September 24th, 1991, so the Live at the Paramount DVD Blu-ray was released exactly 20 years to the day from Nevermind's original release. The show at the Paramount was the final leg of Nirvana's Nevermind tour in the US before they headed off to Europe. On the morning of the Paramount performance, Kurt Cobain got word that Nevermind had just turned gold, meaning it had sold 500,000 copies since its release 5 weeks earlier. As mentioned, this concert is one of Nirvana's most iconic, thanks in large part to the video of the performance. Interestingly, however, according to grunge photographer Charles Peterson, Nirvana didn't even know the concert was going to be recorded. In Charles Peterson's own words, quote, "The record label, unbeknownst to Nirvana, had set up a big film shoot. There were 6 guys all clad in black running around with compact 35mm movie cameras, and I was like, this is the beginning of the end. It was so unfair to their home audience because it stilted the performance. It reeked of money." End quote. Now, interestingly, Charles Peterson said the camera crew were using 35mm cameras, though officially it's listed that they were using 16mm film, so that's a technical point about the film recording that may require further clarification. Despite the fact that the surprise recording of the show may have potentially stilted Nirvana's performance to a certain extent, the Paramount show is widely regarded by many fans and critics alike as one of Nirvana's best performances. I think one of the most interesting comments about the performance made by a critic was when Mark Deming of AllMusic, an American online music database, compared the Nirvana performance at the Paramount to the Beatles' 1964 film A Hard Day's Night, in that both Live at the Paramount and A Hard Day's Night, quote, captured the artist at a moment where success was a pleasure just before it became a burden, end quote. In Everett True's words, a music journalist and good friend of Kurt Cobain's, he described the show as, quote, the end of an era. Incontrovertibly, Nirvana was now big news. Similarly, Pitchfork editor Jason Green stated that, quote, the joy of Live at the Paramount is hearing the charge of this moment. a great band newly famous, still reeling and flooded with nervy adrenaline, end quote. The Paramount performance is widely considered one of the turning points for Nirvana as a band. A year earlier, on September 22, 1990, Nirvana's performance at the Motorsports Garage in front of about 1,000 people was seen by many as the definitive indicator that Nirvana was about to really take off. A year later, the performance at the Paramount on October 31, 1991, was seen by many as the definitive indicator that Nirvana had arrived. For the next 2.5 years, Nirvana's stardom would only continue to rise. Even today, one could argue Nirvana's popularity is as widespread as ever, and I'm sure it will be for many years to come. In my opinion, Nirvana is going to be one of those bands that's always going to be around. That's one of the reasons I enjoy looking into the history of this band. It's interesting to see how this incredibly culturally significant band got to where they did, and some of the marquee moments in their journey. The performance at the Paramount is definitely one of those marquee moments. Nirvana's setlist that night is also symbolic in a sense because it included songs that appear on all 3 of their studio albums as well as on Incesticide. Mind you, by this point in time, Incesticide and In Utero had not yet been released, but Aneurysm, which Nirvana played that night, would end up on Incesticide, and Rape Me, which Nirvana also played that night, would end up on In Utero. One of the most notable parts of the concert is Nirvana's performance of Endless Nameless. It's regarded by many as the definitive live performance of that song. It was the closing song of the night, and it features one of Nirvana's classic equipment smashing sessions. Kurt swings his guitar around his head, drags the guitar across the floor, smashing it over and over, and eventually tosses it in the air and watches it snap in half as it hits the ground. Krist Novoselic proceeds to toss the body of Kurt's broken guitar in the air a few times until he successfully hits it with his bass. In all this chaos, Dave Grohl is in the background continuing to play the drums, and he walks out of it unscathed. The performance of Endless Nameless at Live at the Paramount is definitely one of the best examples of Nirvana's raw energy as a band. Another notable performance from that night is Aneurysm. It's one of the best examples of the power and energy Dave Grohl brought to the band. Nirvana is firing on all cylinders with that rendition of the song. Some of the performance footage from the Paramount show appears in the music video for Lithium, which was released in July of 1992. Nirvana's rendition of Drain You from the Paramount was released as a B-side to Nirvana's second Nevermind single, Come As You Are. Nirvana's rendition of Been a Sun from the Paramount show was released as a B-side to Nirvana's third Nevermind single, Lithium. Andy Wallace, the man who mixed Nevermind, also mixed the Live at the Paramount performance. The renditions of About a Girl, Breed, Polly, and Endless Nameless from the Paramount show appear on Nirvana's Live Tonight Sold Out, a video compilation of different live performances originally released in November of 1994. Nirvana's rendition of Negative Creep from the Paramount show was released in October of 1996 as part of the live compilation album From the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah. As mentioned, Nirvana's performance at the Paramount Theater was part of their Nevermind tour, which lasted from August 15, 1991 until February 22, 1992. The first show of the tour was at the Roxy Theater in Los Angeles, and the final show of the tour was in Honolulu, Hawaii, at a venue called Pink's Garage. Nirvana played a total of 103 shows in 15 different countries over the course of the Nevermind tour. The Paramount Theater show being near the middle of the tour, it was their 49th show. Interestingly, this show was originally supposed to be at the Moore Theater, but due to high demand, the show was moved over to the Paramount Theater, which seats roughly 1,000 more people than the Moore. The Paramount Theater itself at the time of this recording currently seats 2,807 people and was opened on March 1, 1928, initially under the name the Seattle Theater, and it's designated as a City of Seattle landmark. On April 12, 2019, Nirvana's Live at the Paramount was released for the first time on vinyl, and it actually made it onto various album charts, peaking at the 14th spot on Billboard's US Alternative Album Sales chart in 2019. The original 2011 video release also charted, peaking at the number 1 position on the Australian DVD chart and the number 1 position on Billboard's US Top Music Video Sales chart in 2011. Despite the success of the video release, there actually was some controversy involving the Blu-ray release of the concert. The Blu-ray version of the concert was largely criticized due to audio sync problems, so much so that the audio for the Blu-ray version was given a score of 0 out of 5 on Blu-ray.com. In addition to Nirvana's performance at the Paramount, several other notable artists have had their performances at the Paramount Theater officially released. The Grateful Dead performed there on July 21, 1972. That performance was recorded and later released as a live album entitled Download Series Volume 10. Earlier that year, The Guess Who also performed at the venue on May 2, 1972, and their performance was later released as a live album, Live at the Paramount. On March 5th and 6th, 1992, Soundgarden performed at the Paramount, and a video recording of some of the songs they performed were later released as a concert video called Motor Vision on November 17th, 1992. Heart released concert footage from the Paramount, Tenacious D released concert footage from the Paramount, the list goes on. The first time Neil Young played Rocking in the Free World in public was at the Paramount on February 21st, 1989. And so I think it's suffice to say that the Paramount Theater in Seattle is a place with its fair share of rock and roll history. And with specific regards to Nirvana, their show at the Paramount is widely regarded as one of their most important shows, and understandably so. As discussed a little earlier, it's a show that many fans and critics alike regard as one of those turning points for the band, where they really showcase their evolution from having started off as a small band in Aberdeen to now being a successful, globally recognized band. As such, the show at the Paramount has been described by many as a transformative show for Nirvana. Watching their performance with that in mind gives you even more of an appreciation for where this concert fits in the history of Nirvana. Of all the iconic performances the band had over the years, the show at the Paramount definitely ranks among them. Hey guys, so this is the location of a secret show that Nirvana played on October 4th, 1992. This is the Crocodile in Seattle, a venue where tons of prominent artists have performed at over the years. On October 4th, 1992, Mudhoney had a show scheduled at the venue, and an unknown band named Pencap Chew was scheduled as the opening act. To the surprise of the crowd at the venue, once Pencap Chew took the stage, it turned out that it was actually Nirvana. Now, keep in mind that at this point in time in late 92, Nirvana was one of the biggest bands in the world, arguably the biggest band in the world, so for them to be performing in a small venue under an alias name is a pretty cool move. Now, what's even cooler is that apparently the show only cost $3 to attend. Imagine today being able to see the biggest artist in the world in a small venue for only $3. There are videos of this performance available online, though according to Krist Novoselic, the band's road manager went around the crowd during the performance and confiscated 3 or 4 videotapes from people who were recording the show. Nirvana's lineup at the time of the show consisted of Kurt Cobain, Krist Novoselic, and Dave Grohl. At one point during the concert, Kurt asked the crowd if there were any requests, to which Dave jokingly replied in a funny voice, "Play Teen Spirit, play Teen Spirit." The band, of course, did not play Teen Spirit. Nirvana did not play any of their major hit songs, which is a cool gesture considering they were playing in a small club under one of their old names, Pencap Chew. The show, in a way, was a throwback to the roots of the band. Nirvana's setlist during the performance included Aneurysm, Mexican Seafood, Beeswax, D7, Drain You, Talk to Me, Curmudgeon, Lounge Act, Pennyroyal Tea, and School. In addition to the videos of the concert, Charles Peterson also took photos of the performance as well. The photos in this video are some of his shots from that night. Now, as mentioned, this concert at the Crocodile took place on October 4th, 1992. The band didn't perform again live for almost 4 weeks, their next performance being their infamous concert in Buenos Aires, Argentina, which took place on October 30th, 1992. As a complete contrast to the club-sized performance they had at the Crocodile on October 4th, the October 30th concert in Buenos Aires was in front of about 50,000 people, and famously, Kurt Cobain was not in a good mood during that performance. An all-female punk band named Calamity Jane was the opening act, and they were repeatedly mocked and disrespected by some of the people in the crowd. Kurt felt very bothered by that, and in turn, as a way to get back at those who disrespected Calamity Jane, Nirvana decided to play mostly their lesser-known songs that night and skipped over Smells Like Teen Spirit. Kurt actually played the opening riff to Smells Like Teen Spirit twice that night, but then both times he stopped and started different songs. The Argentina show would be Nirvana's last show of 1992, and so I think it's kind of interesting that the 2 last shows Nirvana performed in 92, the show in Argentina and the show at the Crocodile in Seattle, both consisted mostly of their lesser-known songs. Keep in mind again that 92 was arguably Nirvana's peak in terms of their fame, and they closed off that year playing mostly their lesser-known songs. Now, going back to Nirvana's performance at the Crocodile, Nirvana's performance of the song that night, Talk to Me, is particularly noteworthy because there is no officially known studio version of that song available. There might be a studio version somewhere in a Nirvana vault, but publicly, as of now, as of the time of this recording, there has never been a studio version released of Talk to Me. There are only various live versions of it available, including the one from the Crocodile performance. As mentioned off the top, the Crocodile is a venue where many prominent artists have performed at over the years. On October 10th, 1998, for instance, Pearl Jam had their own secret show at the venue, an unannounced performance as the opening act for Cheap Trick. In 92, REM's guitarist Peter Buck met his future wife Stephanie Dorgan at the Crocodile. There are lots of cool rock and roll stories associated with this bar, which is still open today. Other artists who perform at this venue include the Beastie Boys, Beck, Green Day, The Strokes, and Yoko Ono. Mad Season played their first live show at the Crocodile under the alias The Gacy Bunch. In 2018, Alice in Chains played a secret gig at the Croc to mark the release of their record Rainier Fog. As a matter of fact, Sean from Alice in Chains, the band's drummer, actually owned the Crocodile at one point, as did Susan Silver, who famously managed Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, and Screaming Trees. All in all, this is a venue that has a lot of rock and roll history, and it has its own piece of Nirvana history as well. This is Rebar, the venue where Nirvana's release party for Nevermind was held. The most notable thing about this release party is the fact that Nirvana was actually kicked out of the party. Yes, Nirvana was kicked out of their own release party. DGC arranged the release party, and interestingly, the guest list for the party included various people from Nirvana's previous label Sub Pop. As a matter of fact, Sub Pop's co-founder Bruce Pavitt was actually a DJ for the release party. One of the heads of Nirvana's old label was DJing at the release party organized by Nirvana's new label. Kinda cool. There were lots of industry people at the event, but that's not what Nirvana was told the event was going to be like. According to Michael Azerrad, the band was told it would be a low-key affair and that they could invite friends. They arrived to find the walls of the club plastered with Nirvana posters. They had to schmooze with all kinds of dull music biz types and endure hearing their album played twice in a row. The party took place on Friday the 13th of September 1991, 11 days before Nevermind was released on September 24th. Steve Wells, one of the owners of Rebar, recalls that the event went smoothly for about 2 hours, but soon after things began to fall apart. I noticed that Kurt, Krist, Dave, and others kept going up into the DJ booth, and they were obviously getting drunker and drunker, way more than they could on beer. Then the free beer ran out and things started to get kinda rowdy. After the band finished ripping all the posters off the walls, Krist heaved a tamale at Kurt. Kurt remembers retaliating with a salvo of guacamole. Soon, food was flying everywhere, with no regard for the industry geeks whose suits were getting splattered. It was around this point in time that the bandmates were removed from the venue. Krist Novoselic recalls him, Kurt, and Dave laughing about the fact that they had just been kicked out of their own record release party. Kurt, Krist, and Dave spent some time in the alley by the side of the building for a while, joking around and talking through a window to their friends who were still inside the venue. After a while, the Nirvana guys got into a limousine that their publicist, Susie Tennant, had rented, and they went over to Jeff Ross's loft where they continued to party, Jeff Ross being one of the people who printed many of Nirvana's t-shirts. Nirvana, however, was soon kicked out again, this time for setting off some fire extinguishers. They eventually ended up at Susie Tennant's house in the Capitol Hill area of Seattle, where they closed off the night with a destructive final stand, one that included slingshots and eggs, microwaves, etc. A few days later, on September 16th, Nirvana played a show in Seattle, kicking off one of the North American legs of their Nevermind tour. Interestingly, Nirvana's Nevermind tour actually started on August 15th in Los Angeles, followed by 10 shows in Europe from August 20th to September 1st, meaning that Nirvana's Nevermind release party at Rebar happened a month after the Nevermind tour had already started. Nirvana's Nevermind tour would go on from August 15th, 91 to February 22nd, 92. In total, the band played in 15 different countries and had a total of 103 shows. It was a very successful tour, and Nevermind itself is one of the most iconic albums of the 90s, making the fact that Nirvana was kicked out of their own release party for Nevermind even more noteworthy. About 20 minutes walking distance from Rebar is another Nirvana-related location. This, however, isn't a place where the band had a concert. Rather, this is one of Nirvana's old practice spaces. This is the Screwdriver Bar in the Belltown neighborhood of Seattle. Prior to this being a bar, however, at various points in time between the releases of Bleach and Nevermind, the basement of this space served as a practice location for Nirvana. Today, it's a bar which occasionally hosts live acts. The bar pays tribute to its rock and roll history by decorating the walls with images of rock stars, including Kurt Cobain. They even have a Kiss pinball machine. It's been noted by many that Kurt Cobain, especially in the early days of the band, took practices very seriously. As mentioned, this particular former Nirvana practice space is in Belltown and is only a few minutes walking distance from the Crocodile, which is also located in Belltown. Hey guys, this is the location of Nirvana's first ever show in Seattle, the Central Saloon. The show took place on April 16th, 1988. Now before I go any further, I should mention that according to Michael Azerrad's Nirvana biography, Come As You Are, Nirvana's first show in Seattle was actually a week later, on April 24th, 1988, at the Vogue, as part of one of these Sub Pop Sunday showcases. However, The other Nirvana bios I've looked at have each said the first show was April 16th. Looking online, that's also what I'm seeing. Krist Novoselic, Bruce Pavitt, and Jonathan Poneman have also all said that it was April 16th. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to go ahead with the general consensus, which is that the first Nirvana show in Seattle took place on April 16th. The Central Saloon was one of the few Seattle venues at the time which welcomed bands who played original music instead of just covers. At the time of this performance, Nirvana didn't yet have a big following in Seattle. Most of their fans at this point in time were concentrated around Olympia and Tacoma. And so with that in mind, it's not surprising to hear that, according to Krist Novoselic, no one showed up at their show at the Central Saloon. Quote, "Nobody came. Nobody. Not one person. We didn't even play. We bought a 12-pack of beer, sat underneath the viaduct, and drank it. I think I drank most of it. And then just kind of said, oh well, shrugged our shoulders, maybe next time." As mentioned earlier, Jonathan Poneman and Bruce Pavitt from Sub Pop both agree that Nirvana's first show in Seattle was at the Central Saloon on April 16th, but according to them, the band did actually play to a small audience. Bruce Pavitt recalls the following impression he got of Nirvana from that show. None of their original material was outstanding in the least. And to see this band and think, this is going to be the biggest band in the world in 3 years? No way. I put that at about 1 billion to 1. Nirvana's lineup at the time of the show consisted of Kurt Cobain, Krist Novoselic, and Dave Foster. As of the time of this recording in November of 2020, no recordings of this show have surfaced. It's not known if anyone even recorded this early Nirvana performance. The full set list for the performance is also not known, but it is known that the band did play Love Buzz that night. What's interesting to me about the documentation of this show is that different sources have very different opinions and recollections of what happened, i.e. Krist Novoselic compared to Jonathan Poneman and Bruce Pavitt. Considering this was Nirvana's first ever performance in Seattle, you'd think there'd be more documentation of it, but again, as at the time of this recording, there are still holes to fill in, which to be honest makes it more fun looking into the history of the band, considering there's still room for discovery. Now, of course, the Central Saloon is not the only Seattle venue Nirvana has played at. Nirvana played at multiple venues across the city over the course of several years, but according to most sources, this is the first location they played at in Seattle. So if you're a fan of Nirvana in Seattle and you want to check out the venue they first performed at in the city, this is the place. Now, Nirvana isn't the only band to have played at this venue. Others who have played at the Central Saloon include Mother Love Bone, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Jimi Hendrix. The Central Saloon was founded back in the 1890s, making it one of the oldest venues in Seattle. The Central Saloon is located in the Pioneer Square neighborhood of Seattle, which is just south of downtown and about 10 minutes driving distance from the Space Needle. All in all, when it comes to music history in Seattle, this is a very important venue. Hey guys, this is the location of the former Reciprocal Recordings building in Seattle. The building is no longer known as Reciprocal Recordings, though it is still an active recording studio. It's now known as Hall of Justice Recording Studio. I got in touch with the owner of the studio, but unfortunately he was not in town the days I was here in Seattle. Now the building itself is an interesting shape. It's not that big, it's kind of small and it's a triangular shape. And again, because it's not the largest building, it is a little bit compact inside. Jack Endino himself has told me that during certain recording sessions, it could get really hot in there. So you want to talk about grungy? This is definitely a studio that has, a built-in sort of grungy vibe to it. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, I'm saying that it kind of fits the music that was made here that is famous from here. Some of the most iconic grunge artists recorded inside of this building. The list includes Soundgarden, Green River, Tad, and of course Nirvana. With specific regards to Nirvana, they recorded at this studio during 7 different sessions. The first session being on January 23rd, 1988, the last session being on July 11th and 24th, 1990. The final recording session was when Nirvana recorded Sliver, and interestingly, they actually recorded the instrumental parts on borrowed studio time. Producer Jack Endino explains, quote, Jonathan Poneman called up and was begging, "We want Nirvana to cut this one song really fast while they're in town. And is there any way they can use Tad's equipment?" And Tad Doyle was like, "This is our time. We're trying to record something here." He was kind of testy about it. And I was like, well, you guys go and eat dinner. I'm sure we can do this in an hour. And so with Tad's gear, Nirvana recorded 2 takes in 1 hour. Kurt returned on July 24th to record his vocals. Now, going to Nirvana's first session on January 23rd, 1988, that recording is often referred to as the Dale demo session. Nirvana's lineup at the time consisted of Kurt Cobain, Krist Novoselic, and Dale Crover. Kurt called Reciprocal Recordings one day and asked if Nirvana could record there. The producer of the studio, Jack Endino, has said that during this phone call, Kurt Cobain mentioned Dale Crover was the drummer of the band. Jack Endino's band, Skinyard, had played with Dale Crover's other band, his main band, the Melvins, on multiple occasions. Knowing firsthand that Dale is a great drummer, Jack agreed to record Nirvana, believing that if Dale is in the band, then it must be a decent band. I received a call from a guy who said his name was Kurt, and that he was a friend of the Melvins. He wanted to come up and record some songs, and I said, sure, friend of the Melvins, friend of mine. 3 of the songs from the Dale demo session would end up on Nirvana's debut record Bleach, those 3 songs being Floyd the Barber, Paper Cuts, and Downer. It should be noted that all 7 of the Nirvana sessions at Reciprocal Recording were produced by Jack Endino. The next session took place at various points between June to September of 1988. These sessions are known as the Love Bus sessions. The band's drummer at this point in time, up until mid-1990, would be Chad Channing. The next recording sessions at Reciprocal took place at various points between December of 88 and January of 89. These were the Bleach sessions. Following the Bleach sessions, on August 20th and 28th, 1989, Kurt Cobain and Krist Novoselic went into the studio with Mark Lanegan and Mark Pickerel from Screaming Trees. This project was known as The Jury, and they recorded 4 covers together. Where Did You Sleep Last Night?, Grey Goose, Ain't It a Shame, and They Hung Him on a Cross. Kurt Cobain and Mark Lanegan would collaborate again at Reciprocal Recordings between December of 89 to January of 1990 for Mark Lanegan's debut solo record, The Winding Sheet. They recorded 1 song together called Down in the Dark, which also featured Mark Pickerel, Mike Johnson, and Jack Endino. Jack Endino produced the song, and he also contributed some guitar and bass parts to it as well. From January 2nd to 1990, Nirvana recorded a demo of Sappy at Reciprocal Recordings, and Nirvana's final session at Reciprocal took place again on July 11th and 24th, where they recorded Sliver. During the Sliver sessions, Dan Peters was the drummer. And there you have it, guys. That's a brief summary of Nirvana's history at Reciprocal Recordings. Hey guys, so I was walking through Seattle and I happened to come across Linda's Tavern. I was over at Neumos, which is a club where bands like Pearl Jam, Bush, Oasis, Garbage, and Radiohead have all played. I was walking from there over to the Paramount Theater, and in between those 2 locations, I noticed Linda's Tavern across the street. Linda's Tavern, of course, is one of the last locations Kurt Cobain was seen prior to his death, and what I found interesting is that according to the employees who work at Linda's, at least the ones that I spoke to, it's not 100% clear exactly which booth Kurt Cobain sat in. You would think something like that would be common knowledge, but different employees gave me different answers. I was told essentially that Kurt Cobain sat in either the booth at the bottom of the stairs or at the booth at the top of the stairs. So if you do visit Linda's and you want to have a bite where Kurt Cobain did, you might want to order 2 meals, 1 for each booth. The staff here is really friendly. A big thank you to them for letting me take a quick video of the restaurant. If you guys like what you see, make sure to subscribe for more. Lots more to come. Hey guys, so when it comes to Viretta Park, there is the famous bench at the center of the park, but what sometimes gets overlooked is that there's actually a second bench off to one of the sides of the park. And what's really cool is that right behind the second bench, there's a set of stairs that takes you up to the second level of the park. Yes, there is in fact a second level of Viretta Park, which almost never gets mentioned. When I was up on the second level, I did wonder if this was technically a separate park, but I looked at the Seattle government website, and it does say on that website that the upper level is in fact part of Viretta Park. I'm going to take you guys up there now to check it out, but just before I do though, as some of you may recall, the first time I visited Viretta Park was on April 5th, 2019, the 25th anniversary of Kurt Cobain's passing. I recorded parts of the day-long commemoration for my documentary, Rock is Dead. If you'd like to see Rock is Dead, the link is pinned in the comments, and it's also in the description box below. Later on in this video, I'm going to show you some of the raw footage I got from the 25th anniversary commemoration. One of the things that is different about the park since the last time I was here is that the main bench in the middle, it has been repainted, and so the graffiti from last time is gone, which is sad in a way because there was a lot of very heartfelt messages left behind on that bench from people from all over the world who had come to Viretta Park. It's a similar thing with the bridge in Aberdeen, the Yonge Street Bridge. People from all over the world go there and leave messages underneath the bridge, and every once in a while the city paints it over, which gives people an opportunity to put new messages. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why they do it, but either way, whether it's the Viretta Park bench here or whether it's the bridge in Aberdeen, these messages do get painted over. So if you are going to leave a message here, make sure to take a picture of it because it might not be there afterwards. Another thing that has changed is that the color of the grass is noticeably different. The last time it was a rich green color, now it's more yellowish, which is likely due to seasonal differences. Last time I was here, again, it was April. At the time of this recording, it's September of 2020, so it's the fall. In any case, guys, let's go look upstairs at the second level of Viretta Park. If you like what you see and you want to support, make sure to subscribe for more.
I'm so happy, 'cause today I found my friends. And just maybe I'm to blame for all I've heard, but I'm not sure. I'm so excited, I can't wait to meet you there. I don't